All right, we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CMX AMA. This is, I think, our last AMA before CMX Summit, but it is really the best one. No offense to our AMA stars before. We have an unprecedented amount of talent in this hangout right now. These are our workshop instructors for CMX Summit West 2016, which is on November 1st and 2nd in San Francisco. They are amazing. Their workshops are going to be amazing. We will be giving away a discount code a little later in the Hangout, so hang in there. And I'm just going to dive in because I want to talk as little as possible. I will say I'm Evan Hamilton. I'm Director of Community here at CMX, but the people you're here for are all these little faces down here, and so I want to get to them. So let's start off, just do a little intro. Tell us a little bit about yourself briefly. We'll start with David Spinks. David is the CEO of CMX, and he is teaching a workshop on beards, I think. Is that correct?
Yes, definitely. Beards, and our primary case study is two images to the left there, Scott Moore. We're going to be showing off his beard. So yeah, I mean, quick intro. I'm CEO of CMX. I've been building communities for different companies for about 10 years. And my workshop is going to be kind of framing the larger, kind of the big picture. What does a community strategy look like? How do you align all the different pieces of your strategy so that you understand how it all fits together? And then we can dive in much deeper into all the other workshops that everyone's going to be teaching.
Awesome. Next, we're going to go to Scott Moore, who has been a community builder since 1995, which is amazing, and a consultant for, I think, the last 4 years for a bunch of amazing companies, and is teaching Beards 2.0, right?
Yes, advanced bearding. So my workshop, hi everyone, my workshop is going to be pretty much the zero, actually negative something to 5 months of your community. It's in 3 parts. We're going to be talking about how to choose a vendor, how to choose a platform for your community, how to set up your policies, your guidelines, and get yourself to your first moderation hire, including all the moderation you're going to be doing at the very beginning. And then right after you've got people coming into your community, what are those first engagement pieces that you want to work on?
Yeah, so if you're starting a community or you have a community but you feel like you don't really have the right pieces in place, David's workshop, Scott's workshop, that's where you want to start. And then once you have that community going, we're going to take you to Jenn Sable Lopez, who built the legendary Moz community program. She was part of the unfortunate layoffs this year, but she's currently doing the most amazing thing, which is helping laid off Mozers get jobs, because she's just an amazing person. And then probably she'll get her own new job. And she is teaching a workshop on selecting awesome glasses and having awesome haircuts like me.
Yes, unfortunately, my beard is not as lush as most Seattleites would like it to be. Thanks for the intro. Yeah, so if you have any jobs, look at hiremoz.com because we're promoting all the people that got laid off. And it's been a way to keep my mind going, and we've built our own community, essentially. But yeah, so my session, I specifically want to dig into really figuring out the goals, help people find the goals for their community, how they're going to measure specifically what they're doing, how you're going to report it. And then the next step is really to how to test and take it to the next level. So how do you find out, get your baseline, say this is what we're doing right now, and then test lots of different things. And we'll be going through different examples and walk away with a way to report on those things. So I'm really looking forward to digging in and helping folks out with this area.
Super excited to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Next, we have Shira Levine. Shira, aside from just being generally amazing, built up the first community program at eBay, built a community at Zynga and Yerdle. Now she's a consultant. And if I had my way, she'd be teaching a workshop on comic books because we both share that passion. But I think she's actually talking about community.
We can go there. We can for sure go there. So hi, everyone. I'm Shira Levine. I'm so excited to be part of the CMX workshops again, this time for CMX West. My workshop is actually a terrific complement to all the other folks who've spoken so far. And it's really how to take your strategy to the next level. And another way of saying that is, what if you were the chief community officer of your company or your program? And what do chief community officers need to know, and how do they need to act and walk and be in an organization to really be the biggest internal cheerleader for their community and get everything that they want done. And it's going to be interactive. As always, my slides will be shockingly hilarious. And we're going to have, excuse me, we're going to have a lot of fun. And I can't wait to see you there.
Shira's session will probably have the most laughs, though I don't know. I mean, we got a pretty funny group here.
This is a good group.
And last but not least, we have Holly Goldin Firestone, who is the Senior Manager of Community Programs at Salesforce. She built some amazing community programs at Atlassian and knows just so much about community. Such a delight to be around, and is teaching a masterclass on queso. Had to make a queso joke. Holly.
Love queso.
Holly's looking for her.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yep. Oh, we lost you again, though. There we go. I think we got you.
You can hear me. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, my screen's frozen, so actually it's blacked out, but I'll trust that you're all there, and that the mute button is off. I am teaching a class on queso. I wish that we would have a queso tasting at CMX, maybe if we ever do CMX in Austin. So thank you, Evan. I'm Holly Goldin Firestone, still working out exactly what that last name situation is going to look like. And I currently work at Salesforce. I'm running our community programs. That's our MVP, which is our advocates and top community members program. And then our user group program, we have about 382 user groups around the world. And the workshop that I'll be doing is all about scaling and scaling community with a small team, and processes and distributed control and tools and different things that you can use to get to the point where you can still function on a really small team, but have these really great distributed, these great programs with distributed control throughout your community.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing, and I think hopefully folks can see sort of the progression from David setting up with strategy to Holly at the other end scaling your programs. So we have something for everyone. You're going to get 2.5 hours with each of these people. Well, with two of them, you get to choose 2 workshops at CMX Summit. So, geez, again, I'm jealous. I wish I could be in the workshops. But let's dive into some questions. Let's just go into like some really lost someone. We lost Holly. She'll be back. So I wonder if you folks have any thoughts on like, why is community so hot right now? Because it seems like it's having a moment. Go, Shira.
Hi. So this is what I'm seeing this calendar year. So in 2016, what's happening is all the work that we've been doing as calling ourselves community people, which may have started in our career as simply being a moderator of an online forum, has really turned into customer engagement and customer success and customer experience. And by that, I mean, from the minute a customer is acquired, right after the growth team gets them, if the community, using community tactics, you can actually activate that customer, engage that customer, and hustle them to maturity and retention in really effective ways that are complementary to marketing and support, but that really lock in the kind of retention that I think most companies are panicked about these days, about holding on to their customers. So if I had to define what the moment is, it would be that. We're really transitioning from purely community roles to more customer engagement, and I'm sure these other workshop leaders also have an opinion about that.
Yeah, I love that thought. I think, it's funny how we have all these departments focused on pre-sale and, making that sale happen, but the after we don't think about a lot. Jen, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I wanted to say that since I'm currently, out looking at all the job opportunities that are out there right now, what I'm seeing a lot of is they're exactly what Shira is saying, that they're not looking for just community managers. They're looking for advocates and audience developers, and right, they're calling them different things. And I think that what's happening is it's getting integrated into the entire process, as opposed to that, like, well, we have this community, it sits over here, and it may be separate from other things. I think people are finally realizing that if you keep it along the entire process, that it means so much more. And so a lot of those roles are transitioning into different types of roles, sort of along like a buyer cycle, right?
Yeah, I think that matches up a bit with the space model we released, which talks about how community can focus on support or product or acquisition or content or engagement. And we actually have several tracks at CMX Summit focused on very different implementations, and they all have that core element of community, but they're doing very different things for the company.
Can I offer the long view?
Do it.
I've done this, like you said, for a long time. And so the idea of community being hot makes me smile, because this is at least the third time in my career that community has become hot. But here's what I'm going to say about it. I think that what's going on is organizations, businesses especially, have been coming close to community, but not touching community in some ways, not really digging into community. And slowly they're getting closer and closer. But more and more organizations are hitting a tipping point that when they actually bring people together in a distributed, in a authoritative way, that is, people are working with each other, they're actually developing relationships with each other, not just an audience to a business or a brand. There's a tipping point where that community has power, because the organization knowingly or unknowingly has given that community power, and the community starts to affect what the business is. And we're starting to see that, and we're starting to see businesses succeed because of that. And so I think that it's hot because we're seeing this has been a longer run up to community, and it's kind of gets close, and a lot of things get pulled under the community label. But there's a point where businesses are saying, no, this is really actually working. We come close to it, and then suddenly we're getting feedback from our customers like we never got before, or we're getting inspiration, or we're getting innovation from them, and we're making not only a better product, and think of it in terms of sales or product or brand, but we're actually doing something that helps make the world just a tiny bit better. And I'm going to point two things that have come up recently that I think point to this. I think these are inflection points. Airbnb and Nextdoor both making programmatic changes to try to reduce racial profiling on their large platforms is something that nobody's really been doing. And it was pushed by the fact that they had these frictionless markets of people just coming in and doing stuff. And they were like, whoa, we need to do something we need to understand what's going on here. And we're reacting to what's going on within the actual communities. We're listening to what they're saying. And then we're going to make a change. So that's a case where the community is literally changing part of how the business is being done.
I think that's a great perspective, and thank you for keeping me honest about these things go through phases, but it does really feel like we're starting to really figure this stuff out, and to your point, get companies to actually take these communities to where they need to be, which hasn't always happened in the past. So speaking of that, I'd love to get everyone's thoughts on what are some of the successful programs out there, and what did they do to get to that point? And these don't have to be the popular examples, though they could be, but what are sort of your favorite programs out there?
I could start on that one. Yeah, so kind of, I guess, the transition from that last one to this one is like what everyone described is basically, I think it's all bundled up into this idea that companies are starting to function more like platforms rather than these kinds of like more traditional models where the business creates all the value and sends it down like a pipeline. So Airbnb was a good example where they create a platform for people to serve each other. Obviously, we see this in collaborative consumption with Uber, Lyft, all these different kinds of collaborative consumption platforms. But businesses are also able to take that same platform mentality and apply it to different parts of their business, like support or acquisition or content. And so it's just this fundamental shift in how businesses function that's going from creating all the value themselves to creating a platform where people are contributing that value for each other. One of my favorite examples is Duolingo. You look at the transition from like Rosetta Stone to what Duolingo is doing. Rosetta Stone has over 1,400 employees. They've been around for, I believe, over a decade. And they've developed about 30 courses. And Duolingo, in about a third of the time, has less than 100 employees, has developed over 80 courses, and they're valued at 5 times the amount. And all of their courses are created by members of this of their community or of their platform, right? All of the courses are created by usually people who took a course, loved it, and then wanted to contribute as well. So that's one of my favorite examples of taking the traditional business model and exploring how to apply the platform and community model to make it a lot more efficient.
I'm going to make Holly go next.
Unmute. All right. So something actually, this is something that I've seen recently that I've just found really fascinating. In Austin, they've gotten rid of ride-sharing apps. It was a huge thing that happened there, and all of these different other apps popped up. But one of them that's been really interesting to me is Arcade City. And so what it was, it started with a Facebook group. And basically people would post in there, I'm at the corner of 5th and Congress, can someone pick me up? And a driver that used to be from Uber or Lyft would be like, be there in 10 minutes. And it just started growing and growing and growing because there was no other option. And what's happened now around that is within that group, drivers have started building their own communities naturally. So there's now a group of drivers, it's all women and they only drive women, and they have a name and they have like a vetting process, and it all just popped up, out of necessity. But then I guess the Facebook group popped up out of necessity, but now these communities are forming within because it's just a very natural thing to do. And it might, it's not, certainly not my favorite example of community and how it can affect a business, but I do see how these communities that are popping up are serving a need. And it's interesting how this lack of options in Austin, this came from the need there, and it is a natural thing that happens, and it will end up being, they've built a platform now around Arcade City, and so it will turn into some kind of business at some point. I don't know how they're generating revenue or anything exactly like that, but it just is a really interesting example to me about how these things can naturally occur, and kind of from the other side of it, how you build around that versus what we usually look at, which is taking a business and building our community around that. So I found that really interesting, and that's happened in the last few months. I definitely recommend you guys look it up and check it out and see some of that stuff that's been going on there.
I love that. Yeah, I hadn't heard of that one. Shira, you look like you can't hold it back in any longer. What do you got?
Oh, I mean, I can always pitch in, but I love what's happening in the personal beauty space. So we have these big market retailers, giants in the market like Sephora and Ulta, and then and Walgreens and Target, and everyone who tries to own your share of wallet in beauty. And then out of nowhere comes a YouTube star who creates a platform for selling Birchbox-like cosmetics, and the company is called Ipsy. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. And you subscribe. It's like a subscription box, like a lot of these other things. But the way that it's marketed is through YouTube stars, people who do incredible unboxing events and do application demos. And so for me, there's an intersection in that beauty care and personal cosmetics that's kind of like a top-down approach, which is the corporate approach. And all of us know Sephora's amazing long-standing community. They use the Lithium platform. They basically co-invented Lithium for community together. Incredible shining example of a community that's really engineered from the top. And then this really interesting mashup of like taking YouTube stars to sell beauty up from the bottom. Like Ipsy's entire marketing strategy is to build a studio where their internet stars can come film themselves in high quality, because better film looks better for the makeup. So I love that kind of convergence everyone is moving toward the middle, and the mashup of that space, mashup of like showing yourself off and commerce. And then also, I've been studying over the summer what's going on in community for enterprise. I've always watching what Holly and her team have been doing in Salesforce. It's like the shining example, decade-old enterprise community building, the light that everyone should be looking toward. But it's also leaving the pace car and leaving the market open for, now there's a big discussion in enterprise. Is our evangelist program community programs, and there's also a convergence for enterprise and community. So these are the trends and things that I'm studying. I just think there's a lot going on in our field. To Jen's point, there's a lot of opportunity, and it's got incredible breadth.
Yeah. I guess I think a lot of people listening probably are saying, great, those programs sound cool, but I don't know how to start one. Or I've started a community and I just don't see how it's ever going to be that big and that effective. I know there's not a silver bullet, but what do you think are sort of the key elements to actually building up one of these communities and seeing business success?
This is a question for David and Scott, I think.
Jen's also seen a lot of business success, so.
I'm gonna just jump in real quick and say, and just throw it out there that consistency, right? Whether it's consistency in creating content and bringing people in, whether it's consistency in having rules that you set and you consistently follow those rules, whatever the case is. The problem is so many people think that they're like, it's like with so many things. You want to just create a community and then it happens and then everybody loves it. And if it doesn't happen in a couple months, then you just give it up, right? But having that consistency over time will really help at that point when things finally kick off. And then you've had all this, consistency of whatever it is, the thing that you're doing that you have to look back on that has really kept you going. Because if you had stopped at any point in time along that, general consistency, when things weren't super active or you were having to put in a lot of extra work before the community members came in and started adding their voice as well, right? So that is my big one right there, is consistency, and the idea that, just because they're not coming right away doesn't mean that it's not the right thing. So I'll let somebody else go now.
Yeah.
So first, I just want to make sure everyone can hear me, because Google Hangouts is flipping out on my side. I see laughing, so
yes,
that means people can hear me.
Yes.
What I'm going to go from, and I this is going to be something that David's probably going to speak to also, is in order to have success, you need a good foundation. There's still too many folks who are saying, I need a community, or what's my platform? I'm going to put together this community, and the basic questions aren't being answered. The basic questions are, do you even have a group of people who are going to form a community? Why? Who's going to actually be talking to each other, and what are they going to be talking about? How are they going to be talking to each other? Are they going to be trading information with each other? Do they even have the time? I've actually had 2 interactions recently where I've seriously questioned a community effort and lose a job, because I say, I'm not so sure that you've actually got all the research that says that these very, very, very busy people want to be stuck on 24-hour chat. It's the wrong platform for what you're trying to do. It doesn't mean that you can't do that, but there's also a point where you got to look at who's actually going to be part of this and what are the interactions, and mapping those out. When you have that mapping out, and I would even say a certain part of getting goals and objectives ahead of time. This is what we, not just what we think we're going to have people do, but we're actually researching ahead of time and talking to people. Personally, my favorite community to work on was a nonprofit for parents, and I came in and they had already done ethnographic research. I had dozens of hours of videos of parents to watch how they were interacting, what they needed. There was an entire model of interaction that was built up. So you don't have to think too heavily on it. I'm saying that was kind of the pinnacle of how far they had gone before they were really making their community efforts and brought somebody in. And I'm going to stop there for a second.
So I'll hop in. I think another really important thing is having internal advocates, building a base of people internally that are going to advocate for what you're doing, especially, executive buy-in as well. Consistency, as Jenn was saying, is really important, but somebody has to really understand and be bought into. A few people have to be understanding and bought into how that works, and that you're not going to see immediate results, and that you do have to have a sustained period of time where you're very consistent and you're not always going to be getting 100% back from it, especially not at the beginning and not for a while. So I think having those internal advocates is really, really important right from the beginning, understanding not just what you're trying to accomplish and what the goal is down the line, but exactly how long it's going to take and the steps that you need to take to get there, so there's not an issue of people being really impatient and waiting for results that aren't happening just yet. I think in a community role, a lot of times we play this kind of 50-50 role where we work 50% for our companies and 50% for the community, and it's not always a completely even balance, especially at first, because we have to give a lot more into the community than we're necessarily getting back out of it for a while, because it has to build and it has to grow and we have to be consistent. And so I think, in terms of really building and growing, it takes a lot of internal support, people that really understand exactly what you're doing and how you do it the right way, to keep pushing that forward and to keep supporting. And of course, we all need, support and funding and, our time allocated to be able to spend to build these communities from scratch and to do it the right way. And so I think a lot of the successes that I personally have had in community have been because there has been a lot of support internally from, different corners of the organizations.
And so just kind of to respond, I think all three of you just nailed exactly what the biggest problems are, and just to put some data behind that, that's exactly what the research we did showed. So we did this study of over 400 companies earlier this year. The number one reason that communities failed for companies was because of lack of internal support and resources, right? So that's just exactly what Holly just described. It's not getting that buy-in up front. That's the number one concern. Number two was engagement, which is what Scott and Jenn just spoke to a little bit. So also really important, but it basically says if you don't have the internal support and buy-in and understanding from the rest of your team, then it doesn't matter how much engagement you get. You're not going to get the support you need to actually scale and grow your program. And the way you get that internal support and resources is by making a very clear business case. You have to make sure everyone's on the same page about why you're building the community and what the value is, right? Once you have that buy-in, then you focus on engagement. And I think Jenn and Scott spoke to it perfectly, where engagement is all about the people, right? In tech especially, we tend to just focus on the technology. We launch a platform and then we try to figure out how to get people onto it. It's usually not the best way to go about it. Focus on people, focus on creating that sense of community and bringing them together first, and then start to think about how technology can serve those people and help you scale the community. But you build that foundation of the right people first, and then use the technology to serve them.
Yeah, and I'll add one little cherry on top, just that I was talking to Derek Anderson, the founder of Startup Grind, who's speaking on day 2 of CMX Summit, and he was talking about how their first meetup, 2 people came, and it was really awkward and embarrassing, and he was like, "Oh my God, what am I doing?" And then they did a second one, and 10 people showed up. And then they did a third, and 50 people showed up. And your results may vary, but point is you have to start somewhere. Don't worry about starting small. Just try it, see what people say. You might say, "Oh, this isn't the right thing. We need to pivot a little bit." But don't worry about having 2 people show up. That's an okay place to start.
You're going to get a lot of really good insights from the personal connection.
Yeah, exactly. 2 people, you're really going to understand what they need. So we're running out of time here. I want to get in maybe 1 more or 2 more questions, but first I did promise it, so I'm going to let out this secret discount code. If you use the code LASTAMA, you will get 15% off your ticket. There are only 5 tickets available with that code, so go grab them now. This will get you 15% off a ticket to day 1, where all these wonderful people are teaching workshops. Day 2, both days, which I highly recommend. So only 5 of those. Go grab them now. The code is LASTAMA. So I'm going to ask kind of a tough one for one of our final questions, which is, what do you all think is the biggest lesson community professionals need to learn? Like maybe the one thing that you feel like you're not seeing as much as you should in the industry? You know, just a minor question there.
Well, I'll start. I think it goes back to David's data point. Every time I give a speech about community to a larger audience, and often when I go in a company as a consultant, no matter what CMX has asked me to speak about, or no matter what the company says they're trying to solve, really the questions revolve around internal buy-in. And what everyone has sort of mentioned in the last round, how important it is. And I think Holly characterized it really well, of 50% of your job is serving the community and 50% of your job is really managing your internal community. And I'm very happy to say that my workshop is going to, the biggest part of my workshop is going to go into how to do this. We'll even get into the 7 love languages of your boss. And as Evan wisely said, don't underestimate the value of managing your boss, to me. So really, everyone wants to talk about internal buy-in, and I think that goes to the people who do community work well are extreme empaths. So they're not extreme A-type and business drivers necessarily, but they're extreme empaths. They care about how people feel. And the 2 skill sets are not mutually exclusive. So people like us who care about how people feel can also bolt on these additional skills of getting internal buy-in. And some of it comes from experience and failure and being rejected and being tormented by a manager. And some of it comes from just good planning and being strategic about how you approach your internal relationships. So that is the big thing that I always hear about. And I'm sure other people have other great things, but people really always want to talk to me about, how do I convince my boss or my boss's boss or this department or the devs or the product team that this is what we need?
Great one. Definitely been there.
I just want to kind of build on that. I think that's spot on, and that's like the #1 challenge. Like we spend every day talking to community professionals and working with them, and that's the biggest challenge, right? It's like, I think it's like those skills of communicating and getting buy-in, but it's also going to take a mentality shift for a lot of community professionals. You have to, a lot of folks are these empaths. They're so focused on just kind of building a good sense of community, focusing on community. And when they ask for buy-in, or when they try to talk to a boss or work with other team, they're coming in with this almost like victim mentality that community professionals tend to have. Like, I'm not that important. Like, I'm just a community manager. I'm just a community person. Like, also, can I have some budget, please? Like, we're trying to help people, please. And instead, like what I envision for community professionals and what we want is, you should look at yourself as this irreplaceable business value machine, right? Like, this is the way all businesses are moving. They're creating these platforms, and the only way that platforms work are when you organize people in the right way and you get people to contribute. And it's that organization that's going to create this extreme value for these businesses, and it's going to be like the major competitive advantage. Not technology that everyone can build, not sales and marketing that everyone can copy, but how do you organize people and create this like loyal, rapid following of people contributing to your platform? That's a mentality that you need to go in with, and that's the standard that you need to start holding yourselves to. Not, I'm just going to build this healthy community and like this fluffy goodness, but I'm going to create extreme value for this business. I'm going to set up a system to prove that, track it, make the business case, and get that buy-in, because I am extremely valuable to this business.
So I will piggyback off of David, piggybacking off of Shira there, because I think probably what I would say is, metrics and are being able to prove ROI are really, really important. And I think as the community grows, you'll have to be flexible in understanding what the best thing to track would be, or to measure would be. But when you're going in trying to get internal support, or as David was saying, going in and you're making a case and showing the business value, right from the beginning, making sure that you've got a few things that you're looking at and tracking, both on the side for business value and on the health of the community, so that you can continue to determine business value and show that no matter where you go, you have a case for this community. And then on the other side for the health of the community, so you know exactly as you go how best you can optimize the work that you're doing and scale and grow the program. I think those two pieces are something that you can always have from the beginning, and being flexible and changing them or shifting what your priorities are is going to be really important, but starting with something and not just kind of throwing everything up in the air and seeing what sticks. But starting with a couple things and seeing where they go is going to be really important to be able to get internal support and to be able to show business value and to grow in a way that if you start growing really fast, hopefully everybody, does see that kind of growth, then you have a plan in place to optimize and scale what you're doing.
And I want to say that there are so many, basically everyone here, all of your workshops will touch on this stuff. We also have, I think, 3 different talks from very different perspectives talking about ROI and measurement and working with management on day 2. We've got that for developer programs. We've got that for support programs, for employee engagement. So there's going to be a lot on that subject if that's something that you personally feel like you need to work on at CMX Summit. Jen, go for it.
Yeah, I was going to add that one thing that I think doesn't happen enough, and I know clearly didn't happen enough at the case of Moz, was not only making sure that you know the ROI, and not only that your boss knows, but that all the teams know, and that other people are talking about it, right? Because what happened was they essentially got rid of the community team. I was on sabbatical, so the big proponent of community wasn't there when they're having discussions about having a layoff, right? And but what happened was the community flipped out when we were gone, right? Because the community was like, "Hey, these are our people. These are what we know." So one thing that I learned from that was, you can't just have one advocate. You have to have advocates across the organization. It has to be just a part of how you do business, right? So that if you're out sick the day that these discussions are happening, or you're on sabbatical, or right, any of those things are happening, that you have those advocates and people who really understand the value of it sort of across the board, and not just straight up, but sideways as well.
Love it. Scott, you want to close this out? Oh, Scott, I don't think we can hear you. Well, while Scott gets his audio working, we can maybe let him have the last word. Before that, I think we wanted to just kind of go around the room and really quickly tell people where they can find you, anything you're working on right now, all that stuff. David, let's start with you. Oh, everybody's freezing. All right. Anyone who can make their audio work right now, feel free to start. I'm at David Spinks. Hit me up on Twitter anytime. I'm david@cmxhub.com if you ever want to email me. Anytime you have questions about anything with community, we're always here and happy to help. And excited to see everybody at CMX Summit in just a few weeks. Holly, how about you?
I'm Holly Goldin. So on Twitter, it's at HOLLYGOLDIN. Sorry, my lower third is sadly not there, but it's just my name for my Twitter handle. Probably the best place to reach me. Yeah, that's it.
Jen, how about you?
All right. On Twitter, you can reach me at Jennita, Jennita, and I'm very active on Twitter, so that's a great place to reach me. I also, right now, I am open to consulting and looking for my next great role. So if anybody knows of anything amazing, let me know. And my website is jensablelopez.com.
Perfect. Scott, do we have you back now?
I don't know.
Yes. You're live.
Oh, maybe not.
There we go. Okay. I was having the same problem as Hollywood. All right. What are we doing?
We're talking about where people can find you, what you're available for, all that good stuff.
Sure. Okay. So you can, best contact for me is on Twitter at Scott Moore. It was down there, but I don't want to touch Hangouts. You can also find me at the Social Media Clarity Podcast, where Randy Farmer and Mark Smith are my cohorts, and we've started to get a few more out. We do really condensed analyses of both community design. Randy is an expert on reputation design, and then Mark is our sociologist. So there's a lot of stuff about social networking in our archives, and you can just do a Google search for Social Media Clarity, or I think socialmediaclarity.net is where you can find us. I'm consulting, so I am available for consulting. I am also have my fingers out there. I am looking for permanent work where, ideally with nonprofits, where we're changing the world. It feels so good to be able to do that, and I want to use my community knowledge for that. So if anyone hears of nonprofits in the Bay Area who need community help, online community help, I should be specific on that one. That's where you can find me.
Awesome. And that podcast is super excellent, and I love that it's really short because I can just absorb it on a quick walk. So Shira, where can we find you?
My Twitter handle is at Community Drives, because as you know, community is a business driver. So it's at Community Drives. And my website is Fanchismo, the most active and powerful fans find themselves at FANCHISMO.com, fanchismo.com. I'm also consulting full-time right now and looking for my next full-time community leadership gig. And the offer that I make every time I'm with the CMX crew is that my door is always open for a pep talk if you need it. And a great way to find me is just on LinkedIn. Link in with me, and then we'll figure out the details later.
Awesome. Well, I'm Evan Hamilton. You can find me at Evan Hamilton on Twitter, evanhamilton.com. Real creative with those usernames and URLs. And I really hope to see everyone at CMX Summit. That's definitely the big thing I'm focused on. And I'm also available for consulting or to chat, where you can come to my community manager breakfast, which I host once a month in San Francisco. I would love to meet all of you. So thank you so much to all of our workshop instructors. You were all so fantastic. Day one of this conference.
Thank you for setting this up.
Of course, yes. And if you don't come take a workshop from these people, you're missing out, because they are giving so much knowledge and working so hard on these workshops. All right. Thanks, everyone. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye.